Hey everyone, as promised, this is going to be the podcast with Richard Bell, the new team member of Apps. And right now, joining with me are Stan and Richard himself. And let's start this off really quickly. And Richard, why don't you tell us about yourself? How did you got into fitness?
First of all, hi guys. My journey started way back, like when I was 15, 16. I used to be like really, really fat as a kid and got bullied quite a lot, like all throughout middle school, basically. About halfway up to high school, where I got kind of sick with the way I looked, like I had really low self-esteem, and eventually developed an eating disorder. Started with anorexia and basically slowly transitioned to anorexia mixed with bulimia, which continued for about 2 years until I was 18. After which I started working out. The year before that, I sort of joined the gym, but I was doing like ridiculous amounts of cardio every single day, like being in the gym for like 3 hours, spending an hour on the bike, spending an hour on the elliptical, just going on a spinning bike and just finishing up the workout for as long as I could, basically, until like the gym owner kicked me out eventually, because that's what happened after a couple of months. He became really worried at one point because I smell of ammonia like really bad at all times, and I just kept losing weight, and the only thing I was concerned with is like getting abs. But at that point, when you weigh like 50 kilos, when you're 175 in meters and you were 18, like shit's not right at that point. So he became really concerned, and he actually took the time out of his day to just put me aside and like, dude, what the hell are you doing? And we just had a really long talk, and basically I didn't see what was happening. I didn't even like know it was bad for me. I just wanted to get like proper muscle definition, but I didn't have any mass, so you can't get abs anyway. I just got skinny as hell, and just kept losing muscle mass at that point. Barely ate, kept dropping weight, but didn't notice any difference in terms of body fat. And up until that point, like he started slowly sort of coaching me throughout that process and slowly getting me back up to a normal weight and normal body up until that point. So when I was 17, 17 and a half, I still didn't weigh shit. Like I was 60 kilos, something around there. But at least I got back up to a healthy set point in a way, which transitioned into a phase where I wanted to learn everything about fitness, about nutrition, about training, physiology, basically. So I just started reading a ton. Just kept browsing the internet for reliable sources. Came across guys like Lon McDonald and Alan Aragon, Brad Schoenfeld, people like that. So at that point, I just digested whatever I could find, whatever I could read when I was still in school. So push came to shove, and I was like 18, closing in on 19. Up until that point, I was doing fairly well, still doing half-ass workouts basically, but I was getting an idea of where I should be going. And when I turned 20, that's when I discovered like the whole evidence-based approach to training. Because before that, I was reading up on it, but I was never actually applying it because I was doing like a push pull legs, upper body, lower body, never really progressing, never knowing what volume, how it worked, what frequency actually was, like what overreaching was, because I was doing a ton of that. I was still in that mindset of being hours in the gym just because I enjoyed it, and I was still under the illusion that more is better. So even though my strength level was really shit, I just trained like I was some sort of elite trainee, basically, benching like 60 kilos and thinking I would bench like 140 within a year. So after a year, I was still stuck at like 75 or 5. You know, I barely made any progress. So I really delved into the nitty gritty basically. And just kept analyzing like every single thing I could find. Dove into books like Advanced Nutrition, Human Metabolism, like the really So-called boring stuff for most folks,
The
like the
hardcore stuff.
really, yeah, the hardcore stuff like that nobody wants to read, but you need to have on your shelf anyway because it may be useful in the future. You won't ever have to tell a client like, okay, this is how ketosis works, and you
This
can
is the Krebs
actually,
cycle.
yeah, exactly. That's just stuff like the Corey cycle. You don't need to explain that anyway to a client, but I enjoyed it, and that's probably due to having spent years in vain, basically, and having thrown away all those years not doing anything and just spinning wheels. So I enjoyed it, and as my knowledge progressed, like my physique changed quite a lot. And people came up to me at the gym like, okay, we're seeing you making some stellar progress. Like, can you help me? And that slowly transitioned into a passion like helping people. So I got my PT certificate. After a couple of months, I started off just working at the gym, slowly transitioning into the PT field, and I did that for about 6 or 7 months. After which, I just took on some online clients, basically a couple of friends and a couple of folks at the gym, which I just coach mainly for promotional reasons and just to get some experience in as far as coaching goes. And as it turned out, like people got really great results, but most importantly, I discovered that it was actually a passion. Like I really enjoyed helping people, and especially the tougher cases, like people who have been through a lot of emotional stuff, who just spend years and years with all kinds of issues like self-esteem issues, eating disorders, or even if they just have like a really shitty relationship back home with the parents, or like a significant other, like the whole lifestyle thing. That really intrigued me, and that was something I really put an emphasis on, like in coaching people. So eventually, as the months passed by, I was still under the impression that I wanted to pursue physical therapist education, like kinesiology. So I started off with that. I spent about 4 months until I got up to the point where I was actually arguing with a lot of teachers who, ironically, agreed on a lot of things, but they literally told me like, okay, this is the curriculum. We know some stuff is expired to say the least, but that's just stuff we still need to teach. So after a couple of months, I just had a lot of talks with my tutors and with a lot of old students at the school. Like, is this still relevant? Will this help me eventually attain the goal of being an elite coach, basically? And the main point, what they told me is that like it'll help, but it's not worth spending like 4 to 6 years pursuing this education. Basically, you're better off spending it on stuff you actually enjoy and stuff that actually benefits you like immediately or over the long term, but most importantly in the short term. So after a couple of meals with a lot of tutors, and especially also some meal conversations with like people I look up to and people that mentor me, Mano Ansimans, for instance, who started coaching me a few months prior to that, and who I'm really grateful for basically everything about where I'm standing right now. Because he basically told me his life story and what kind of situation he was at with his background, basically, and his education. Because for people who don't know who Menno is, first of all, just look the guy up, BeijingBodybuilding.com. But he comes from a background of statistics, economical statistics, and he was basically a business consultant, and he was doing really well. He was making lots of money. He was has a really proper job at that point. But his passion wasn't fitness. His passion wasn't coaching people, like studying fitness. So he eventually gave that up after years and years of studying. He gave that up to pursue his career as an online coach, basically. And the guy's been doing extremely well. He's, in my opinion, one of the top guys in the industry right now, globally, as far as I'm concerned.
Without a
And
doubt, that
without a doubt,
goes
yeah,
for
for
me as
sure.
well.
And I'm so blessed to be able to learn from him and actually working with him. because I'm teaching his Dutch Bayesian PT course at the moment, hosting seminars with him, and actually consider him a close friend at this point. His girlfriend's also working for me as a co-coach for my company. But yeah, he basically told me his background, and he basically told me like, okay, I really know you don't enjoy what you're currently doing, and no matter how you look at it, you will want to change something and always be in kind of a rut with what you will be doing over the next 4 years, and you will regret it in the end. So instead of wasting 4 years, just take a step back and really look at what you want to do in the short term. So after a couple of mails back and forth, and talking to some other guys like Dutch elite coaches as well, who've been in the field for like 20 to 30 years, coming from all kinds of backgrounds, I just decided like, okay, fuck it, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna quit school. I'm not sure if I can make it. I'm not sure how to approach it because I had no understanding of marketing, social media, whatever. Like, sure, I was on Facebook, but if you ask me how I would use it, like business wise, I had no clue at all.
And everyone else is
Um,
also on Facebook, so it's not really that relevant. Just being there.
exactly. But yeah, I consider Facebook at that point and social media like the new MySpace, stuff like that. So just profile stuff. But I just took the leap and I made a deal with myself like within the next 6 months. I want to attain this and that, and if that doesn't work out, like I'll just keep grinding for a year. And if I regret it in the end and I'm still not making any money, still not coaching a lot of people, then fuck it, I'll see what I'll do. I might even end up in the supermarket, whatever. I'm gonna try. If I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna go all in. So I basically spend like literally every single hour of free time, still reading, still studying, finding ways to like get new clients, but especially like coaching the ones I already have. And ironically, that was all the PR I needed at that point because like once the transformations came in, people started like being really grateful
You see
and
Stan
talking
laughing. He
like
agrees with the
basically
transformation stuff.
yeah, they basically did the marketing for me because like they redirected family, friends, people at their gyms. So eventually I got up to 20 clients before I actually had a site. um, that's another point which I really in hindsight should have tackled earlier, but I just started off with a really basic WordPress site, which looked really shitty, and just had like a homepage with a couple of articles and basically my services and price ratings and a contact form. That was it. But it got the job done. It just made sure that I kept the ball rolling and I kept doing what I loved. So after that, we're like 3 to 4 months down the road. I was doing pretty well for myself. I got a steady income, was coaching like a lot of people at that point, 20, 25 people, consistently every single month. And that was the start of what I was doing, what I wanted to do. So things went really well. I started collaborating with one of the Dutch coaches, one of the top Dutch coaches at that point. Eventually, after a couple of months, took over all of his clients under his wing, basically in his company. Worked for him about 8 months, after which I left because I wanted to pursue a lot of other things. I wanted to spend a lot more of my time on coaching people internationally, coaching competitors, but really having a lot of time to spend on the individual because in my opinion there's a huge disconnect at this point in the industry of coaches that want to make money and coaches that actually spend individual time with their clients, like taking the time out of their day to actually help them. Like you have coaches that basically set up a program, they set up a template as far as macros and nutrition goes, and they're just like, okay, here you go, that's your program, we'll update you like every mostly a week, every other week in most cases, and that's basically it. Like I imagine email conversations to go like, okay, here's your update, have fun with it. But in my opinion, that's not coaching, that's just replacing an AI. And if I look at the industry right now, AI will become a big thing over the next few years. So that kind of coaching, or coaching if you want to call it that, will disappear eventually. And the only thing, in my opinion, that sets a coach apart from an AI or any automated program basically is the human factor, as I call it, and really actually coaching people. Like, it's not about nutrition only, it's not about programming only, about training only. Proper coaching and actually getting results is about changing your lifestyle in the long run. Like, sure, if someone comes up to me like, I want to do a photo shoot within 12 weeks, you look shit and you just want to get jacked and shredded, for instance, like, sure, you can do that. But what happens afterwards? What happens after that show? Will you rebound? What happens during that time period? Like, you will come up to a point, like, if your social circle, if you're a significant other or your friends, it's weird to them. Like, being obsessed, as most people call it, most lay folk call it, with your nutrition and your training, that will become an issue. And if they don't understand that and you don't have the tools to cope with that, basically, and mostly psychologically, like, you get people fighting with friends, avoiding parties, avoiding social events, like breaking up. I've seen marriages collapse because someone wanted to do a show. Like, is your goal worth that? Is it really worth it to, like, throw away a marriage because you want to spend a couple of minutes on stage? Like, you might spend 4 months dieting, prepping for a show, but in the end, you're up on that stage for a couple of minutes. If the journey is not enjoyable, if it's not worth it in hindsight, like, don't do the freaking show. You
Yeah,
don't
because
want
in
to.
the end, no one cares if you won or not. If you should have been first or 10th, no one cares besides you
Exactly.
for 5 minutes. So that's something we try to resonate to our audience quite a lot, because people don't understand that being jacked, looking a certain way, is a place, and that place is gone in like 2 minutes. And unless you're
Yep.
happy on the way to there and the way after it, then don't do it, because it's gonna ruin your life.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I've seen it happen so many times. People just being in zombie mode at that point, like spending months and months on end, just focusing on a goal and doing whatever it takes to attain that goal. But then the show's over, and then what? Like, compare it to a marathon or a sprint. You want to go from A to B, and you set off with a goal, like, I want to reach point B. But once you're at that point, once you're across the finish line, like, what are you going to do at that point? If you don't have anything to continue, you don't have a plan for what you're going to do afterwards, like, where are you going to go? You're going to stand still and just enjoy your, like, 5 minutes of fame at that point? Like, still, shows especially, it's still a judge thing. Like, you get judged on how you look. If the jury and the judges don't like the way you look, if they don't think you should win, and you play sixth, you don't even get a top placing, you don't qualify for the next rank or for nationals or whatever. Like, you spend months on end trying to chase that top placing. It's throwing away a lot of tons of stuff in your life, and you didn't even place. So you spent months and months on end just throwing away your life, basically. You didn't attain your goal, and then what? You've hit rock bottom. You've probably got some self-esteem issues. Your social life's probably down the drain. It's
Hormones are fucked, totally.
Hormones are fucked, especially for naturals, because that's also a thing. Like, no matter if you do it naturally or you're an enhanced athlete, hormones will get fucked up eventually anyway. You will get hungry, you will get lethargic, you will get cranky, you will fight with people for no reason. You'll feel, like, emotionally messed up the entire single day during those last few weeks. Is it worth it spending weeks and weeks on end feeling like absolute shit if you don't enjoy the process? If you don't enjoy going to the gym every single day, if you don't enjoy prepping your meals, if you don't enjoy your meals, if you don't enjoy getting through the day at all, like, is it worth it at that point? Or are you just doing it to chase some goal that doesn't even hold any meaning? Like, okay, say for instance you qualify for nationals and you become a national athlete at that point. You're not making any money off of it. People are still under the illusion that if they're at that point, they'll start making money, but no. You may get a sponsorship or two, and that can go two ways. You can either get a couple of supplements or a budget every single month. Like, whoop de fucking do? You've got $300 to spend on whey protein. Like, where are you gonna store it? And like, if you don't become a fitness model, if you don't get like some sort of contract with a company, you're not gonna make any money off of it. It may be a couple of $100, but you're not gonna earn 3K just
And
looking
even then,
pretty.
it's just temporary. And people don't
Exactly.
realize that it just happens from time to time. It can't be a full-time job unless you're all year round in contest level condition. And that takes exceptional genes and probably some other stuff that I don't just want to mention just not to spark some fires around. But anyway,
Yeah,
I
that's
want
not
to
gonna be
get
whey
back
protein or
to
creatine at that point.
yeah, definitely. I want to get back to something, and I personally think that the most important quality of a coach is empathy. It's not
For sure.
how much you know, it's empathy. Is if you can place yourself into another person's shoes, if you can guide them, if you really genuinely want to help them, and establishing that emotional connection and trust. And without it, it's all ruined. So how do you manage that with your top level clients? Because you actually have some really elite clients, like people
Yeah,
who
I
compete
mostly
in IFBB.
focus. Yeah, at this point, I mostly focus on competitors and elite clients at that level. And that's also where I want to be heading over the next few years. Just solely focusing on elite clients, on competitors, stuff like that. Besides that, I also coach a couple of normal, average Joes, basically, and a lot of people with psychological issues and physiological issues. Like, I got a bunch of girls with anorexia, bulimia, stuff like that. I've got a couple of guys with eating disorders, but it's mostly competitors or people that want to do shoots, fitness models, stuff like that. But like you said, empathy and being able to actually listen to a person and take time to understand what they're saying or noticing stuff, that's the most important part. Because knowledge, you can always read up on stuff. Like, okay, not everyone's as willing to learn or able to learn as much as the next person, but up to a point, you can teach pretty much anything to anyone as long as they're willing. And that's never an issue. But the human factor is something you have to practice and something you need to own. For instance, with female competitors, also with males, but it happens a lot with females because they're kind of hesitant to talk about problems with a guy as well. Like, they sort of know you, but it's still like you're up to a point someone that's not completely in their lives. So you have like female competitors typing males this big every single update. And after a while, you've noticed like stalls in their weight, or you've noticed ups and downs in their training. And males just keep getting shorter and shorter, up to a point where it'll just send you an email like, okay, here's my update. Have a great weekend. Like, that's the moment as a coach you should be thinking like, okay, that's not what I'm used to. That's not how would that person usually communicates, like what they usually do. Like, there must be something wrong at that point. And there's the rare instance where there isn't anything wrong, where it's just like they're busy or they don't want to talk about stuff. um, but trying to analyze situations and actually talking down to people, like, I get people on Skype. I send them video recordings, or I just have like really emotional mails with them, just trying to get down to what drives them. What's the reason you're in this situation? What's the reason you want to do the show? For instance, I've had girls who thought they wanted to do a show because they really enjoy like the whole bikini thing, the figure thing, because they really enjoy competing. And in the end, it was just about self-esteem issues, about stuff that happened in the past, about trying to prove themselves to others, trying to do something because they've been bullied all their lives. As a male, for instance, I've had a national competitor that was really focused on trying to improve himself every single day, but it was all from a background of being bullied all throughout like the last 10 years of his life. Even at his current job, he would still be picked on because it was a really shy, um, a shy person who wouldn't be able to talk with every single person at his job, who wouldn't go to lunch with colleagues, stuff like that. And that was really bothering him. So he decided to pick up bodybuilding. He decided to go all in. And he wanted to be a professional athlete at that point, a professional bodybuilder. But that wasn't the reason he wanted to compete. Like, it wasn't the reason that he wanted to step on stage for, like, okay, I want to be a pro because I want to look jacked and I want to beat others. No, it's because you've been struggling with your self-esteem for the last 10 years, maybe more. And you think this is your way out, but in reality, it's not, because once you're up on that stage, people at work will still treat you the way they do the day after the show. Probably worse, because you've been avoiding any type of social situation at work over those months leading up to the show. So it may
Yeah,
even been the case that they actually think you're a freak because you're always bringing your own food, or you're never drinking coffee with sweets, drinking cola because you always want cola light and they don't have that at your work. So that's just stuff you have to keep in mind. Like, what drives you? What's the reason you want to do that show? What's the reason you want that physical change? And you see that with a lot of average shows as well. Like males, they want to get a six pack. Why? Because they bought like the recent issue of Men's Health and they want to look like the cover model. Well, newsflash, that cover model isn't using whey protein. That cover model's getting paid, or the actor's getting paid to look a certain way. There's been interviews with actors like the guy that played Crixus in Spartacus. I forgot his name, Manu Bennett, if I recall correctly, or Tom Hardy for who played Bane in The Dark Knight Rises. Like, they've admitted in interviews, like, you have that limited amount of time where you're at point A, you need to get to point B, and in their
you gotta
case, it's a
get
physical
jacked in three
transformation.
months.
You have to get fucking jacked in 3 months. You have to gain 10 kilos of muscle mass in 3 months, which takes a full freaking year as a beginner of tracking your food and your training every single day as a beginner. And they have to do that in 3 months, and they get the offer like, okay, if you don't get the job done, we'll find someone else. Like, you can take 10 million bucks and you can be in this movie, or we'll go to the next guy. Like, what are you gonna do? I'm quite positive that almost every single person out there will take the needle and will go like, okay, you give me those 10 million bucks, I'll start juicing. If you want me to look that way, just tell me what the hell I should do. It's my career. I live for this stuff. I'm going all in. And that's something people don't realize. Like, a fitness model has to look that way the entire year. You have to be shredded the entire year. So that means you're cranky as hell, you're hungry, you're maybe socially awkward at points throughout the entire year. And if you're not looking like that, if that's not your year-round shape,
Then you
that's
have no
not
job.
that's not called an off season in their case. It's called being unemployed.
Yeah, exactly. I was about to quote that. It was who said that? It was a
Greg
famous
Plitt, if I
body.
recall correctly, he literally
Yeah,
said,
yeah,
like,
he said
I
that.
don't have off seasons. I'm either working or I'm unemployed.
Exactly, exactly. And I actually wanted to get back to you on that because, as far as my experience goes, most guys
Hmm.
want to get a six pack because they think that's what makes them really attractive and it's gonna, you know, make girls like them. It sounds really dope, but that's the way it is, especially the younger guys.
Yeah,
And
for
that's
sure.
so not true. It's like has absolutely zero to do with being attractive and whatever. And to me, the most awesome part with working with someone is when I get an email. Actually don't I realize I don't need a six pack. I'm actually super strong now, and it makes me 10 times more confident. I feel great, or now I sleep better. I have no issues with my sleep, or I've taken control over my binge eating. Like I had a female, which wasn't dropping a lot of weight. She just lost like 3 kilos in 3 months. But we went from her binging 4 times a week to her not binging at all. And she's just
That's
like,
the transformation you're looking for.
yeah. And she was like, she sent me a huge email, and she was 10 times happier just because she had this issue. She was filling this emotional hole with food, and now that's gone, and you feel liberated, and now you don't need to feel skinny. you actually don't care because you're way happier with who you are. And that's the
Yeah,
most important part. That's the human factor. That's why we can
without a
send
doubt.
you a program and macros, and it's not going to do absolutely anything for you. And that's why we have a free program. That's why we have free articles, because there's so much free information on the internet. It makes no sense to charge money for something that doesn't work or works for 2 weeks only, and then you're back to wherever you were beforehand.
Exactly. And what's optimal on paper is never optimal in practice for a lot of people. Like what may be optimal on paper can be really, really shitty for someone that doesn't have the willpower or someone that's not at that level to do it. Like if someone has like an eating disorder or have really low self-esteem and they have to go to the gym 7 times a week, for instance, and they have to be in there for 2 hours a day, while a girl may feel like she's constantly being judged by the folks at the gym. She's having cravings all day and just wants to binge every single day. You can have a really optimal paper and program and diet on paper, but it may be really not suitable for that person. Like, for instance, I've had a client, she's been with me for more than 10 months at this point, and she started off at a really, really suboptimal program and actually told her that as well, but that was because she was dealing with self-esteem issues. She had anorexia at that point. She was in a really bad place mentally. She was unemployed, just came out of a breakup. Like she, with all the stress going on, she could train 3 times a day. While she was advanced, she could train only 3 times a day because she would just burn out if she would do more for like 40 to 45 minutes before being like totally fried and bored as well. Because like at one point, if you don't enjoy what you're doing, it's not going to be enjoyable for a week, let alone for a month or a year, let alone for the next 10, because that's also an issue that people don't realize. Like, if you don't enjoy what you're doing, are you going to do that for the next 10 years, the next 20 years, up until you get old and die, for instance? So that's something to keep in mind as well. But we had to transition her into a more optimal program over a couple of months. Like if I had started her off on what she should have been doing on paper, like okay, these are your strength stats. Um, you're at this point, you want to go to that point. We'll throw this at you. You have to work out 7 times a week, 2 days if you can muster it. For instance, you have to sleep 9 hours a night. You have to eat 4 meals a day at specific times to keep your circadian rhythm in check. Like she probably wouldn't even have followed that for a single day, or she would have done it for a day and then quit after day two. Like it's not sustainable, and if something isn't sustainable, then you're not gonna do it. If you're on your diet for 6 days a week and you binge on the seventh day because you're having a cheat meal or a cheat day, as you see people still doing it, like it's not gonna be one bite or one slice of bread with Nutella. It's gonna be that entire jar, and that's breakfast. Like post workout is Ben and Jerry's with pizza, and before you go to bed, you have like Oreos and Pop Tarts.
That was me.
That's your cheat
That
day.
was me.
Yeah, we've all been there. Like we've been
Yeah.
the guys that wanted to
We've
get a
all
six
been there, yeah.
pack to impress people, and we ate chicken, broccoli, and rice 6 times a day to keep the metabolism, keep it burning. We did the faster cardio. That's the whole point. Like we've been through all of the crap that's out there. We've experienced all of the myths, and that's why we're up at this point. Like you can't find out what works and you can't learn from your mistakes if you never make them.
Yeah.
And
And
if you
that's why we
never
have
fail,
that's why we have aesthetic by science. Let's focus on that a bit because we're
yeah,
kind of
for
running
sure.
out of time. Can you briefly explain why you wanted to join our team? Because you're actually really delighted that we decided to form this team, like international one.
Yeah. Well, it all started with me coaching you, basically, for what, 9 months at this point, if I recall correctly, like on top of my head, 8 to 9 months.
About 9 months, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, about 9 months. And I've always had the goal of setting up an international team of like elite coaches that actually want to help people, and that's also one of the the top reasons why I only have two co-coaches for my Dutch company, and who I've really spent a lot of time um, basically looking for them, because I only want to collab with people that want to put in the effort and want to put in the time. Like if I want to start a coaching company with someone, they better work their asses off to keep that clients like not only happy, but to make sure they actually benefit, the clients benefit from the services they pay you for. You're not gonna pay a couple $100 just to get a training program and just to get a nutrition plan. You pay a couple of $100 to actually help, make sure someone helps you transform you both physically and mentally. So that's one of the top criteria I always had for an international coaching team. And my original plan was to just keep pushing my Dutch company and eventually transition that into the international market and just see where that would end. But after a while, we started talking, and we discovered we had a lot of the same goals. We had a lot of the same viewpoints when it came to helping people and actually putting the client first. Never even thinking about money at that point. Like if we spend an hour on just one meal, or we spend 5 minutes, like as long as the person's happy, as long as we can make an impact on someone's life, that's what matters. So we started chatting back and forth, and we discussed a lot of potential ideas. And eventually, you wanted to branch out internationally. I wanted to branch out internationally. So we just looked at what was possible and what the customer base was as well. At that point, I first discovered that Bulgaria was still a country that needed like a lot of myth busting, same as the Netherlands as well. Like there's a lot of bullshit floating around still. People still thinking they can wear like these plastic bags and lose fat if they go jogging, for instance. That's still floating around, and that's something that's going to take years to make any kind of impact. Because for every single article we would release, or for every single person that we would convince, there's still always like a person like Jillian Michaels that sells one book to 10 million people who buy into that bullshit and who follow that plan, not getting anywhere from doing it. And that's just like it's about selling out versus actually helping people, and that's something that resonated really well with you and with Stan as well. So yeah, we just took the leap. Like let's start it off, like start working on articles, on plans on how to help people together, what our vision should be, how we would approach the entire thing. And the ball started rolling, and this is probably one of the first real things that we can show people. Like we're officially a team now at this point. So I hope we can muster it and we can pull it off. Like we can change lives, literally.
We can. We already are, and I'm super. I'm saying this with 100% confidence because I've been receiving a lot of messages, Dan, as well. And the other reason is, when we can go internationally, we can start producing content in English. We can attract better writers, better guest posters, better guests for our podcast, which is going to continue rolling out on a monthly basis. So we can have Meta on, we can have Brad on to tell us about muscle hypertrophy, about high frequency training, how much rest should we take between sets, all those things that still people get in entirely opposite directions. Like you can have a person who on one day has like 30-second rest intervals because of reason A, and the next day have like sessions with 10 minutes rest between sets because of something else he read. And it's crazy. It's crazy the huge discrepancy that we can see in this industry. So I think that way, branching out internationally, we can both bring first to the international audience something nice, something really of quality, and then to a local audience, you can translate this podcast to your Dutch clients. We can do that for Bulgarian audience, and overall, we can form this international team that you spoke of.
For sure. And that's eventually the goal. Like I think for all three of us, like helping as many people as we can, without sacrificing quality, because that's what usually happens when people go for the mass markets and when people go for the international market. Like they want to reach as many people as they can, but up to a point, where it's still quality over quantity, and then they know like, okay, I can reach like 1 million people this way, but I'm gonna reduce the quality a bit, and I'm gonna charge more or less and sell it to 1 million people instead of 1,000 and actually help them. And that's something we, in my opinion, would never do. Because I've actually declined like collaborations and clients that wanted to pay, but it would simply be like, okay, you would automate the entire coaching just to reach 100 people more and you would make easy money. Like, fuck that shit. Like, I want to help people. I want to make sure that from where I've been, like my history with eating disorders and with low self-esteem, stuff like that, I don't want anyone um, being stuck in a situation like that. If I can help even one person, it can help two people, it can help 10 people getting rid of stuff like that, like changing their lives, coming from a situation like that into actually enjoying their lives and starting each day with a smile on their face, with plans to start a company, with plans to getting married, like actually being happy. That's what matters.
I agree, and that's a great way to end this one off. Definitely gonna have a part two because this was so interesting. I think we could have, spoken for another hour at least. And we start looking for some guests. So, any final words to all the Bulgarian listeners, to all the Dutch listeners, to hopefully all the international
Um,
listeners?
yeah, if people have any questions regarding me, regarding the company, regarding our vision, or just topics they want us to discuss, just let us know. Send whatever questions you have our way, and we'll get online to answer them. And the only thing I'm here for is helping as many people as I possibly can with you guys. So let's get that mission rolling, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, man, it's rolling. Our international website is ready. We just not released it yet. We wanted to launch this podcast to show you Richard, the man himself, to show him, to get him to show you guys his methods, how he deals with things. It's quite similar to what we do. Richard has a lot more experience, so definitely check out his stuff. It's mostly in Dutch, but I'm sure he has some English posts as well. But it's valuable reads, definitely.
It's probably the easiest way to contact me or just to see what I'm up to, what my clients are up to, is following me on Instagram, which is at Bell Coaching. Yeah, probably a Bell Coaching, like this logo thingy, that one.
We're gonna post it in the notes, but definitely it's your Instagram feed is great, so I would recommend everyone to join it. It's not only about information; it's also a lot of fun content, a lot of cool ideas. Yeah, definitely join it.
Yeah, and if people want to see, want to know something about any specific topic, they want us to bust some myths, just shoot us a message and we'll get online to answer all of it.
Yeah, in the next edition of the Static by Science podcast. So thank you all for tuning in. This was really great. It was, I think, 3 times longer than we intended because it was way more interesting than we thought it would be. And I hope you've enjoyed this and you tune in next time. Bye from me,
Bye
and you
from me as
guys,
well. Talk to you
yeah,
guys next time.
talk to you next time, guys.